Kevin Michael Schmitz here, and this is one of my absolute favorite topics that we get to cover. It's the 9 critical mistakes that photographers make. Now, this is something that I personally am very, very passionate about because I see it every day. I consult and work with photographers, and I'm there to mentor photographers and help guide them to the highest level of their potential. But this is something that I want to get in depth about, the 9 critical mistakes. And there's actually going to be a couple more that we're going to go in depth with when we bring our panelists on. But the 9 that I want to cover today are going to start off with one of the things that I feel photographers struggle with the most. And that is something like what I like to call being a jack of all trades and a master of none. And I talk to so many photographers that do this. They end up having their fashion photographer, but they also shoot weddings, and then they shoot babies, and then they're photographing National Geographic photography, and they have landscape photography, and then they have high conceptual fine art photography, and then they want to shoot commercial advertising and automotive photography, and they have all of it on their website. Well, I'm here to tell you that that's the worst thing you can ever do as a photographer if you want to be super successful. And the reason being is that if you become that jack of all trades, you're going to be seen, and I love to qualify it as being seen as, say, if you're a physician, do you want to be seen as the general practitioner, the GP, the doctor that just does everything? Or would you rather be the specialist? Would the client rather hire the person if they have a, they're going to have the person's going to have a quadruple bypass surgery? Are they going to be more likely to hire the surgeon that is specific to be a heart surgeon? Or are they going to be hiring the person who's just a GP, a general practitioner? Well, if it's for medicine and you're going to be saving someone's life, of course you're going to hire the heart surgeon. Right? And it's exactly the same thing in photography. If you're going to spend $200,000 on hiring a photographer to shoot an ad campaign for a brand, are you going to hire the photographer that just shoots everything? Or are you going to hire the photographer that's a specialist in the type of photography that you need for your branding campaign? If you're a wedding client and you want to hire a photographer to shoot your special day, and you want that wedding photographer to be the best around, and you want those images are so key because they're going to stand the test of time, they're going to last for the rest of your lives. Is that going to be important to you? Or are you going to hire somebody that just does all different types of photography? Somebody that just is going to, photograph a variety of different types, and they don't know who you are. Are you a portrait photographer, a fashion photographer, a lifestyle photographer? You shoot babies, you shoot boudoir, whatever that is. And I can tell you, it's really critically important to become the expert in your trade, the expert in the photography that you do, and you need to be seen as such. You have to be the world-class photographer in the type of photography that you want to be hired for. Okay, it is absolutely key. It is critical, and it's something that I want to showcase today. So, and I'm going to give you guys some examples. Myself, I'm a photographer that shoots a ton of different things, guys. I mean, I photograph. I've done about 20 gallery exhibitions in fine art. I have photographed portraiture. I have photographed product photography. But you know what? In the last 15 years of my career, I shoot fashion photography. I shoot lifestyle photography. I shoot TV commercials. I'm also filming television shows. I'm shooting all different types of content, but my clients only know me as the photographer. If I'm sending this to my clients where I shoot for Burberry, they only know me as the photographer that shoots fashion. That's it. All they know is that I'm a fashion photographer. I don't show my clients, that my fashion clients like Georgio Armani or Zara or Burberry, I don't show them that I'm a lifestyle photographer. I don't even really show them, that I do anything else, because I want to make sure that all they know is that I'm a fashion photographer. And this is the type of photography that I do. This is my brand. Okay. Absolutely important, key, and critical, because I'm not a jack of all trades. And I encourage you guys to do the same. And on the flip side, for my commercial lifestyle advertising clients, I showcase that I'm a lifestyle photographer, happy, healthy people having fun, enjoying life. And I'm creating these sequences where the people are enjoying themselves. They're laughing, they're smiling. It's so much fun. Totally different brand. The totally different Kevin Michael Schmitz. And then when I'm shooting television, I want to showcase TV networks, my television shows. I want to showcase content where I'm showcasing my TV content that I'm filming, that I filmed. This is my show, all filmed for my show Great Escapes that airs on CBS on Saturdays. And I'm showcasing this content to TV networks for upcoming shows. But they don't need to know that I'm a fashion photographer. They don't need to know that I shoot lifestyle advertising. All they know is that I do this, that I shoot television, okay? And this is very important, really important. So I want you guys to start thinking about that, because everything is all about branding and branding yourselves separately. So remember, one of the #1 mistakes that photographers make is they are a jack of all trades, master of none. And they're not basically creating content specific to what their clients are looking for, and then essentially showcasing to a whole nother gamut of clients, a whole nother type of brand. It's very, very important. And this is something that I can help you guys with. This is something that I have a lot of experience with, coaching as well as my photographic consultants, as far as guiding photographers to become that niche, become that expert in their photography. It's absolutely key. It's something that cannot be more overstated. Okay, so I want to make sure that you guys understand to just put that aside. If you have a website that has just a whole bunch of different content on it, you need to narrow it down. And if necessary, create a whole separate body of work, a whole separate website. Okay, really, really, really important. Okay, one of the next things that I have to get off my chest as far as one of the top 9 mistakes that photographers are making: no contact information on their websites. And if I ever talk to a photographer and they're claiming that they are not being booked all the time, they're saying, you know what, I wish I had more work, but I'm not getting calls, I'm not getting contacted, I don't know what's going on. Well, okay, well, first step, look at your website. Do you have your contact information plastered all over your website? Is it there? Can people get a hold of you? And I'm mystified when I go to somebody's website and they're a photographer. They're trying to run a photography business and I don't see their phone number. I don't see their email address. Are you kidding me? You're literally telling the world that you don't want to work. So unless you don't want to work and you just are completely complacent and have no interest in being successful, then you need your contact information plastered all over your website. And you know what? Mine is. My phone numbers are plastered. If you go to all of my websites, my phone number is available. You can look at my contact email, contact phone number. You can get on there and you can find it. Okay. And yours has to be as well. And you know what? I think that's key and critical. And, some people might tell me, oh, well, I don't want people spam calling, whatever. Who cares? Who cares? What about those clients that are trying to call you and they can't reach you? I'd be a lot more concerned about that. And what's going to happen is say I have a client that's going to book me on a $200,000 ad campaign, right? Do you think a client like that is going to fill out a web form on my website? No, not interested. You've lost them immediately. You've lost them. They won't even contact you because they would never fill out the web form. They would never take the time to do that, right? So you have to have an email address and a phone number. I also recommend having all your social media pages, your Instagram, your LinkedIn, your Facebook, everything available for everybody to see. It is absolutely imperative, and be checking it all the time, because a lot of times if people are messaging you on Instagram, Instagram essentially hides those messages that it doesn't, feel like are, one of your friends or followers. So you oftentimes, are getting messages that are kind of hidden and rejected in Instagram. So make sure you're checking that all the time. I get valuable offers in there all the time of projects, and they message me on social. Now, part of that's because I have a 200,000 following on Instagram, so that helps. But I also get all kinds of things that are kind of like blocked and filtered out. So make sure you're constantly checking that. But guys, absolutely key. Make sure your contact information is plastered everywhere on your website, and have those separated websites for your different brands. It is so key. I can't describe how important that is. And if right now you don't have your phone number, your email address, on your website, literally, I want you to change it right now. And you come back to this webinar, but you get on there and change it, because it is so key. It is so important. And if you're not doing that, you're missing out. Okay, the next thing I wanted to, that's our panelist who's going to be joining us here shortly, is the great Lance Andrews, a world-class photographer in his own right, that I have worked with for many years. I also want to talk about the next most critical aspect. And guys, I want you guys to also ask some questions on here, because we want to make this interactive and I want to answer some of your questions. And if you have any key mistakes that photographers make, please post them. Post them on the Q&A. I want to see them. I want to hear them. It is very, very important to me. And I get really excited about that when photographers are posting and showcasing some of the things that they think are the most key critical mistakes that photographers make. All right. And I also am going to be asking a series of polls as well throughout this webinar, and asking you guys lots of questions. But the next thing that I wanted to get into, as far as the number 3 most critical aspect and critical mistake that photographers make, is pricing. Okay, this is something that almost all of us are guilty of. Photographers, I tell you what, if you are pricing yourself too low, you're literally on a race to the bottom. And it's not going to help you. I talk to so many photographers where I go on their websites and I'm seeing these price points where they're shooting a website, or they're shooting a wedding for $2,000. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Do you want to work? I mean, might as well just work at McDonald's, because literally, if you're shooting a wedding for $2,000, between the time it takes to book the client, the conversations with the client, the setup for that, oftentimes maybe even having a second shooter, and then also the whole day of shooting, all the time, and maybe even engagement pictures ahead of time, and then afterwards, all of the post-production, the processing of the pictures, the retouching of the pictures, putting together a wedding album, all of that. You're talking, minimum wage there. If you're not charging $10,000, $12,000, or $15,000 per wedding, you guys are giving away your services for free. And especially in this climate right now, with inflation at where it is, people are expecting to spend more. Clients are expecting that. Do you think that, your wedding venues are not going to be doing the same thing by raising their prices during inflation? Do you think that the chefs that are doing the catering are not going to raise their prices? Of course they are. I just did 2 massive scale productions in a row. One in New York, shooting at $40 million mansions out in the New York area in Greenwich. Another one was our elite masterclass in LA with these top supermodels, and we shot at an airfield. And I can tell you what, my caterers are not less expensive than they used to be. My caterers are more expensive. The chefs and the cost of everything has gone up. And that's just because of inflation. And you know what? You as photographers definitely need to increase your pricing, like heavily, because oftentimes we are giving away our services. And I hear the flip side. I hear photographers, they're scared. Photographers say, but if I raise my prices too high, nobody's going to book me. Nobody's going to want to hire me if my price is too high. But you know what? That's fantastic, because it means that you're going to weed out the crappy customers that are unwilling to pay what you're worth. And you're going to start to attract the customers that are actually going to provide the investment into your photography services that you deserve. And you can feel better about those type of clients, and then start working with those clients and get referrals from those clients. So if you're a wedding photographer, I strongly recommend that your wedding packages are $10,000 to $15,000. And I know that, maybe if you live in a rural area, and you're in a rural part of the country where you feel like people don't have that kind of money, well, okay, maybe they don't always, but you don't necessarily have to stay in that rural area. You can photograph, you can even shoot weddings that are destination weddings or in other cities. I have a lot of photographers I coach that do that all the time. And you can, and for instance, I have a lot of great photographers that that want to be high-end wedding photographers that are coming to our epic workshop at the French Castle. Right. So when we're going to the French Castle, these are $1 million events, because those are the kind of weddings that I host at my castle. These are $1 million an event. So do you think that the wedding photography for that is going to be a small amount? Of course not. The wedding photography is very high budget for these clients, because we're talking about the best of the best. We're talking about clients where money is no object, right? And they are going to be looking for high-end content like you see here. World-class models in unbelievable wedding dresses in front of epic venues. This is what they're looking for. And guys, pricing is so key, because if you produce content that looks like this, why shouldn't you be charging $15,000 to do a wedding? Why not? Especially if the clients are spending $1 million on their wedding. And oftentimes, I know here in California, I don't know anyone who spends less than $100,000 on their wedding. I've never met somebody in California that spends less than $100,000 on their wedding to do a full wedding with at least 100 guests. It's just very expensive to do things. So if you think that your photography is not worth at least, $10,000 or $15,000, then you need to start waking up and thinking and start valuing yourself and your photography. It is absolutely key and critical. I love it. All right. So guys, please, I'd love for you to answer some, ask some questions on here, because this is very, very important to, for me to basically showcase and answer some of your questions that you guys have, because now is the time. If you guys have any questions about pricing your work, about pricing your photography, very, very important, because that's something that we can, help kind of guide you on all of those aspects of pricing. All right. All right. Now, I did get a question here from Nunzio Rue. Where to advertise within that level? That's a great question. So if you're going to be advertising, if your goal is, Nunzio, to work with high tier wedding clients, ones that are going to be spending $10,000 to $15,000 on a photographer, then we need to start looking at advertising yourself in the right markets, such as The Knot, which is a wedding publication, Brides Magazine, Bridal Magazines, a series of those. I think that's very, very important. I also strongly recommend, Nunzio, that you start working with high-end wedding planners. And if you guys are interested too, if that is your market, get involved in some of our wedding planner webinars that I'm directing, because I own this epic venue and I'm going to be doing a whole series of wedding webinars, and we'll be marketing it out on all our social platforms as well. But it's going to be an entire audience of wedding planners, and these are the elite of the elite, the ones that are planning these, 6- and 7-figure weddings, and very, very important people to connect with. But I would be contacting them on a daily basis, building relationships with them, and then also offering them, incentivizing them to book you as a photographer. Not just, hey, look at my work, it's great. Do you want to book me? It's more about, okay, I will not only produce the greatest images imaginable for your client, but I can also provide you, say, a commission, referral commission, kickback. This is how it works. So if you say you kick them back 10% of that budget, they're going to be more likely to book you. Okay, that's kind of the little secret with a lot of that, but it is very, very important. Okay, now, great question, Nunzio, though. I love that. All right. Now, when it comes to pricing yourself for commercial campaigns, this is something that I work with. Many of you guys that are on this webinar right now have worked personally with me on this, developing your commercial advertising body of work. Now, a lot of that comes down to how world-class your photographic portfolio is, what kind of value can you add to the client, and what the budget is, obviously, that if you're working through an ad agency or working with client direct, but what is going to be the usage fees and the creative fees based upon the media buy. Okay. Now, this is something many photographers aren't aware of. This is something that they price themselves to the bottom if they're commercial photographer because they just want the job. But you know what? We don't need to do it that way. We don't. We need to start looking at the big picture, and we need to start pricing ourselves accordingly. Okay. And I want to make sure that you guys start putting in budgets with commercial clients based upon the media buy. And if you don't know what that is, then ask the client. Ask the client, what is the media buy for this project? You know, and oftentimes the creative director may not know, but they can ask the account person. They can find out on the account who is handling the whole account, what the overall media placement is. Meaning, is the placement to go national, regional, local, international? What is it, right? And if the budget is, for instance, a national campaign, even if it's for social, we need to find out where it's going, how much they're spending on the media placement. Okay, that's going to be how you're going to price it out. And oftentimes, I talk to so many photographers that do this and directors where they're like, "Oh, yeah, they just told me it's just for social and just for web and and just some Instagram stories and stuff like that, and they only have a budget of $5,000 or something like that." And then you discover later that they're spending $800,000 on a media buy, and you were paid $5,000 to do the creative for it. So they're paying $5,000 for the creative, all the production to do this, and then they're spending $800,000 to place it. You don't know how many times I've run into this. I've talked to photographers and they kind of explored and found out later on. I mean, that's really sad because now you've lost out on so much of it. Typically, the rule of thumb, it's going to be 10% of the media buy. Okay, the media buy could include social. It could include Facebook ads, Instagram ads. It could include print media. It could include broadcast commercials. It could include a lot of different things. So, wherever the placement of the media is going to be, that's essentially the media buy. And to give you guys an idea of how I price things, here's an actual budget from one of my campaigns. This gives you the way in which I price things. So this total production budget, this was a 2-day shoot. This is $194,340. Okay. This includes the overall budget. Now, of this, of course, it includes everything from catering to, hair, makeup, wardrobe, talent, production expenses, equipment, everything. It's all itemized. And if those of you guys are interested in something like this, we can set up a one-on-one photographic momentum session with one of our photographic consultants, and we can actually give you examples of these budgets for you guys to go through in detail and look at and start to kind of price out your own photographic budgets. So if that's of interest to you, let us know. And I am going to put on a link here in the chat to set up a one-on-one photographic momentum session with one of our professional photographic consultants. And this is something that we can go over your budgets and pricing. We can go over and talk about your photographic brand. We can talk about, how to make sure you're getting the contact information on your website. Make sure you've separated your websites and your brands. Make sure that you are getting the usage and creative fees for your commercial campaigns, or if you're a consumer photographer and you're a portrait and wedding photographer, how do we maximize the correct package that's going to maximize your profits later on as a photographer? Now, I'm directing these webinars, guys, for free because I love to give back to the photographic community, and I love to showcase and literally reveal all of the secret strategies and stuff that have allowed me to be successful. I'm a celebrity fashion advertising photographer. I've been shooting for about 15 years commercially. I've also had my bachelor's and my MFA to be a professor of photography. I'm a TV director of the TV show Great Escapes, as well as a new show called Buying Abroad. I've got I've been shooting major campaigns for Burberry, Georgio Armani, Pepsi, Smirnoff, Miller Lite, Coors Light, Zara. I've shoot a tremendous amount of advertising campaigns. And in my whole career, I have been able to create a series of different brands that have become very successful. And that's why I'm here to help guide you guys to become as successful as you possibly can. And listen, I have made these mistakes myself. So all these 9 mistakes that photographers make, I've made them, and I'm here to help you guys so that you don't have to make the same mistake, that you guys can end up essentially kind of going past this, because you know what? These mistakes cost time and they cost money. So I don't want you guys to have to lose time and money. I want you guys to be able to get past that and be as successful as you possibly can without having to hit all these terrible mistakes that all photographers tend to make. And I'm certainly guilty of it myself. I've made all these mistakes myself at some point in my career. Another thing I wanted to bring up, guys, is another critical mistake that photographers make is telling photographers how long you've been shooting. Now, I just said it just now. I've been a commercial photographer for 15 years, but I would never tell a client that, right? I have photographers all the time. The first thing they say to me is like, oh, I've been shooting for 30 years, been shooting for 40 years, I've been shooting, whatever it is. I can tell you one thing, that is an absolute detriment, because the longer you're shooting and the more experience you have, the more it hurts you. And I know that's probably hard for many of you to hear, but it actually hurts you. And let me tell you why. High-end clients, especially those commercial advertising clients, they do not want somebody that's been shooting for 30 years or 40 years because they see them as dead wood. They want somebody who's fresh. They want to see high-end fresh work. They want to see a photographer that's hip, that's shot something hot right now, not something that was shot in the 90s or the 80s. And they don't want to see old work. They want to see something fresh. And the fresher you are, the newer you are in the world, then the more likely they are to be interested to hire you to shoot for their client. Now, that being said, they might not necessarily want to hire some 22-year-old kid right off the, right out of, college that they may or may not trust yet. That's true, but sometimes they do. Oftentimes, if you have a little bit of experience, it helps, but they're generally looking for a lot of photographers that are a little bit more on the youthful side. So I think that if you are not as youthful, if you're not in your 20s or 30s or early 40s, and you're in a upper age bracket, I would never tell them that. I would never volunteer that information, and definitely never say how long you've been shooting, because it's literally one of the first things to shoot yourself in the foot. That's a critical mistake that so many photographers make. I see it all the time. Okay. Another one of the greatest things that, greatest mistakes that photographers make that's absolutely critical is that, guys, stop using your customers in your marketing. And I know that sounds crazy to you who are consumer photographers. Oh, but what do I show then? I want to show this wedding or that wedding that I photographed, or I want to show this portrait or that portrait that I photographed. But you know what? Do you think that that's going to compete at the highest level? I want to ask you, what do you think that every single bride in America is looking at every day of the week? Every single bride is going to be looking at bridal magazines. Every single one of them, I don't care who it is, every day, every single bride that there is, they're looking at bridal magazines, right? So if they're looking at bridal magazines, what are they going to see? They're going to see celebrities. They're going to see top fashion models. They're going to see the most beautiful people in the world dressed and styled in the most beautiful way by the most beautiful photography, right? Highly produced, world-class fashion wedding photography. This is what they're looking at. And all brides, not even just high-end brides, but all brides are looking at this. So if that's the case, and you're showcasing your customers that are just average people, might not be the most attractive people, might not be the thinnest, might not be the best looking couple, just normal consumer, normal people in your photography, boom, you've already lost a huge amount of clients right there. because you're now competing with these bridal magazines. And these photographers that shoot these bridal magazines, oftentimes they're fashion and wedding photographers, and they're getting hired on $10,000 to $15,000 weddings because they have world-class top models and celebrities in their book in wedding dresses. Why don't you have the same? So if you're a photographer right now that shoots weddings and you are showcasing customers in your portfolio and on your website, and those customers are, and if those customers are not celebrities or fashion models, please, immediately, you need to make a change. Immediately. You need to become either, I suggest one of two things, a solution for you. One is you need to stage a wedding. You need to literally stage a wedding. It might cost a huge amount of money, but you need to stage a wedding, bring in top models, bring in, the flower girls, the bridesmaids, the groomsmen, and actually literally stage a high-end wedding, or brand yourself as a world-class fashion photographer that just happens to shoot weddings. And that's what a lot of my photographers end up doing. They brand themselves as world-class fashion photographers that happen to shoot weddings. And if you can start doing that, and you can bring in high-end staged content like this into your body of work, like shot at my castle, my 49-room castle from the 13th century in France, this is the kind of content that gets the cover of bridal magazines. This is the kind of content that wows and dazzles the million-dollar clients. This is the kind of content that's going to book you those $10,000, $15,000, even $20,000 weddings. So if you guys are interested in doing something greater, then definitely stop showcasing your customers. And the same goes for you who are fashion photographers that are showcasing model portfolios, like test shoots that you shoot for models or headshots you shoot for customers. Stop it immediately, because you're only shooting yourself in the foot. And this brings me to my next most critical mistake that photographers make. And that's essentially photographers are terrible at marketing and branding themselves. Absolutely terrible. And I'm sure most of you guys can agree, because most photographers just struggle so much. And I hear photographers say, oh, but I just work on word of mouth. If that's the case, then you've already lost. Because if you get all your customers through word of mouth, that means you're not charging enough. That means that there's no way in hell that you're booked out, all year round on super high-end, projects. It means you're probably on a race to the bottom because you're not willing to put the time, the effort, and energy into marketing yourself and closing and selling yourself, because that's what it takes. And I can tell you the most critical aspect that photographers fail at is their marketing and their branding. Okay, it is so key, and this is something I see every day. And I can tell you what, if you guys aren't spending 90% of your budget each year for your photography business on your marketing your photography to clients and developing your photographic portfolio and taking workshops to get there or producing it yourself, if you're not spending 90% of your budget for your business on that, then you're doing it wrong, because that's the only thing that matters. And it's something, do not waste your money on buying equipment. Equipment is literally the biggest waste of money there is. You don't need a new camera. You don't need new lenses. You don't need new lighting equipment. There's never been a customer that I've ever run into in 15 years of my career where they ask me what camera I'm shooting with. They don't care. They just know, they see my work. They know it looks beautiful. Okay, great. And it doesn't matter if I shot with a camera from 10 years ago or I shot with my iPhone 14. It doesn't really matter. What matters is your photographic brand, your portfolio, and the marketing of that photographic portfolio. And I'll give you guys an example. So we were just at this epic shoot last week. We just wrapped it, 5 days. We shot 2 days at a $16 million mansion in Hermosa Beach for lifestyle. We shot at an airfield with all these 1940s fighter planes. I mean, it was unbelievable. And the images we captured, like this one, are on the next level because the models were world class. We had some of the best models in LA, some of the best models in the country. We built a body of work that is high production, world-class top talent, world-class hair and makeup and wardrobe, and we told stories, photographic stories. We built world-class content, and the photographers that attended shot the greatest images they've ever shot in their lifetime, which is really exciting. So what's awesome about this is that photographers invested in themselves to develop themselves to the next level of their photographic career. And this is what I get really excited about, because when you have photographers like this creating unbelievable content that they can now market themselves to the next level. And they can market like an image like this. It can be marketable to the consumer clients, towards personal branding, headshots, portraiture. You can also market this towards editorial clients, commercial advertising. I mean, there's so many realms that you can use this for. But listen, guys, the most critical component, the most critical thing, mistake that photographers make is photographers are not investing their money properly. They're spending money on equipment. They're spending money on employees. Are you kidding me? If anyone here has employees, please message me about this. I would love to hear it, because to this date, I have never seen a reason to have an employee as a photographer. It's the worst decision you can make. And I'll tell you why. One is it's expensive. You've got to pay their salary. You've got to pay payroll taxes. It's harder to fire them if they're not an independent contractor. They have all kinds of rights. They have all kinds of aspects that make it more difficult for you as the employer. And it's just a huge waste of money. So I mean, I understand it's maybe if you're making over $1 million a year as a photographer, that you might have a little bit extra budget to waste on an employee. But even if you're making $1 million a year as a photographer, it's still not worth it. There's literally no reason to ever have an employee. And what's even worse than an employee is a business partner. So if any of you out there have a photographic business partner, you need to start really checking in about why. And you need to talk to us about that, because there is literally no reason in any way, shape, or form to be in business with somebody else if you're a photographer. You're just an independent contractor. You're a photographer. You're one person. Why would you have a business partner? It doesn't make any sense. And even if you have other photographers beneath you, say you have 5 shooters or 10 shooters or 15 shooters, why would you need a business partner? You're just losing half of your money right there. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen, but I actually have spoken to photographers who have business partners. It is absolutely ludicrous. Get rid of a business partner or start a new company and just use that new company if you have a business partner. Definitely don't ever have an employee, because it's the biggest waste of money you could ever have. If you do need to hire somebody, independent contractors, W-9. That way that you don't have to, there's no payroll taxes. You don't have to take care of, you don't have to pay for vacation days or health insurance or anything. It's so much more flexibility. And of course, I hire tons of independent contractors for all kinds of things. But if you ever need help, like with sales or marketing, same thing. Hire independent contractors. If you need to hire people, I also recommend using Upwork or Guru.com. Those are 2 excellent websites to help hire people, especially to help you with your marketing and everything like that. Okay. All right. Now, Belinda Roy, wonderful photographer. I've had the opportunity to work with her on a few occasions at some of our epic workshops. She asked a great question. Marketing is my weak point. I'm sure many of you guys could probably sympathize with her. What do you need to say in your initial contact emails to get them to answer you or get them to answer your follow-up phone call? All right, Belinda, excellent question. This is something that I'd recommend that when you guys jump on your one-on-one photographic momentum session with one of our photographic consultants to ask this. And actually, we have some templates. And Belinda, I'd be happy to share with you personally a template of what to send. Generally, when I'm communicating with a client, oftentimes what I'm doing is I'm sending a very short email. Okay, this is another mistake that a lot of photographers make. They write way too long-winded emails. And I can tell you what, the higher level a person is, the shorter the emails they want. So if you ever know any CEOs, I've never seen a CEO in my lifetime that writes paragraph emails. CEOs literally write like less than a sentence. They might even write a phrase. right? So they write a very, very short message. So I encourage you to do the same, especially if you're dealing with high-level people. They don't have time to read those. I don't have time to read those. When somebody emails me some long 3 or 4 paragraph email, honestly, I don't even read it. It's just, it's ridiculous. There's no reason to send me that much information. I don't have the time. I'm so busy. So, and I would encourage you to do the same if you're dealing with your high-end clients. So 1 to 2 sentences tops, never anything more than that. You want to make the email about the client, so make it about them, and add value. So some opening line that refers to the client and what the project is and what kind of value you could add to the table, the client. Right now, for me, I have a lot of value I can add. I can produce world-class, huge productions. I've got access to $40 million mansions. I've got access to castles in France that I own. I've got access to celebrity stylists that style for Vogue. I have access to top supermodels from Vanity Fair, Harper's Bazaar, Vogue, models that have been in the Versace campaign, Burberry campaign. I've got access to the best of the best. So that might be something that I can showcase to clients. And if you guys have attended our workshops, you have access to them too, because you've worked with them before and you have my contacts. So Felinda, for instance, you've had a chance to work with me before at a couple of our workshops. And so Felinda, now you've got my Rolodex at your fingertips because you've worked with my people. But also you can add a lot of value, world-class photography, world-class video, showcasing them something. And I also attach an image to the bottom of every single email. So every single email I ever write, no matter who it's to, I always, always, always include one image, one. And once in a while, I might include 2 or 3, but it's usually one single image, okay? And with that one image, I've got just, you know, a little bit of information about, like, I've got my websites and stuff. I've got my one sentence, my name and my websites beneath it. And then I've got one picture. That's going to be clean. And it's the same thing if I'm contacting a modeling agency, if I'm contacting an ad agency, if I'm contacting, no matter who it is, I'm going to keep that same method. So Belinda, I recommend a very, very short and sweet message in your marketing. Okay, now I'm talking about these huge mistakes. You guys are failing at marketing. You guys are failing at follow-up. Okay, so let me talk about the solutions. Successful photographers, they have, first of all, they have a world-class brand. They have a world-class photographic brand that's high level, and they have unbelievable content. They have photographs that are just absolutely stunning, images that are iconic, right? We're looking for iconic images that just blow away the competition and catch the interest of others and get people really, really excited, right? So we want images that are iconic. And the photographer that I'm going to bring on, Lance Andrews, he is notorious for having very, very iconic images, right? His images have impact and they're iconic, right? So if you have images that are iconic, people are going to be like wowed and dazzled, and they're going to stop and look and be like, all right, wow, okay, he's a real deal. And if you can showcase in one picture in your marketing something that's going to draw their attention, you've already, boom, you won half the battle. Now you've got their attention. Now your message has to make sense and has to have a call to action. Now, one of the things, okay, so if I'd be very interested to know what you guys are doing for your marketing. Please put this in the Q&A. If you guys tell me what your marketing strategy is, how many times per month and per week that you email clients as a photographer. So emailing ad agencies or emailing your consumer clients. Are you sending e-blasts? Are you sending personalized emails? Or are you guys, how many phone calls are you making? I'd like to know. Please put it in the Q&A. How many calls are you making per week to clients? How many emails are you sending out? E-blasts and then also personalized emails. How many messages on LinkedIn are you sending? Okay. How many messages on Facebook and Instagram are you sending? And if your answer is very low or you're not doing those, well, you've got to have a major adjustment right now because you need to do everything I just mentioned. Okay. We need to be, first of all, developing that world-class brand, right? So having that unbelievable brand that you wow and dazzle the audience, right? So the world-class brand is key. So having that first. So, you know, you don't want to market with crappy photography or crappy video. You've got to have world-class content, right? So that's the first step. So once we have world-class content, and here I'll showcase, for instance, I have an epic reel of my content that this is for one of my production companies. And I'm showcasing my world-class content for my one of my reels. And so I've got my reel now. Now I've got this unbelievable content, but I also need to start showcasing this to all my audience, right? So I want to make sure that my audience is going to see all this unbelievable content. I need to make sure that my audience is going to be followed up with on a regular basis, right? It needs to be followed up with. And we need to have this content in front of people all of the time. And I need to follow up with them via LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I need to make phone calls to them. I need to make sure that they saw it. I need to follow up with personalized email. And I like to have an email broadcast. But I have a lot of photographers that, they get the agency access database, which is a database of all the photographic decision makers at ad agencies and brands and magazines nationwide. And then they send an e-blast out, and then they expect that people are going to call them and book them. Well, I got news for you. That doesn't work. That's never worked. That isn't the way it's done. All those e-blasts do, they allow you a little bit more of an opportunity to get yourself out there. They give you a little bit of an opportunity to be able to showcase some of your newest content out to an audience. That's it. That's it. That's all they do, is they're showcasing this new content out to the audience that you're just doing like a drip of like, oh, okay, this is some of the fresh stuff that I have. And that's all it is. It's nothing more than that. It's nothing more than just showcasing some, fresh new content out there. And they may or may not see it. Most of the time, they're not seeing it. Most of the time, it goes to spam. They don't see it. They're, they may or may not even be interested, whatever. But I don't care. I'm going to be doing that anyway, right? I'm going to be doing that all the time. So guys, you've got to be, most importantly, picking up the phone and calling people too. And I know that a lot of photographers don't like that, but I can tell you one of the most critical mistakes photographers make is they are lazy and they don't pick up the phone call. They don't pick up the phone. They're not sending relentless messages. And you've got to be all over those clients if you want to book them, because the clients it really comes down to who's in front of them, who's top of mind. And unfortunately, a lot of times we're not top of mind. A lot of times they've already met with major decision maker. These major decision makers have already met with the photographer that they like. They came into their office in New York and they met with them. They brought in a bottle of wine and a bunch of cheese, and their agent came in there. You're competing with that. So if you're not doing that, then you're missing out huge. If you're not constantly meeting with people, and it takes phone calls and emails to set up those meetings. But that is another major key component, that mistake that photographers make, is they fail at their marketing. They don't market themselves, and they don't spend 90% of their time, energy, and resources developing their brand, their portfolio, attending epic photographic workshops like what we offer, marketing their photography to their clients, and then following up with them. And they just rely on word of mouth, and they don't do what it takes to be truly successful. Follow-up is everything. Now, this is something that I'm going to segue off of my marketing experts, because I brought in these amazing marketing experts as panelists on our virtual workshops, as well as panelists on these live webinars. I've had guys like Photography for Profits. I've had, which is a marketing company for photographers. I've had Michael Sterling with MS Marketing. All he does is market photographers. And all these marketing for photographers companies, they all tell me the same thing. They say, hey, we start with a photographer, we market their brand, and then oftentimes the photographer doesn't follow up. So they've all this momentum, all this messaging, all this marketing, all these ads that the photographers are spending money on, and then these leads come in, and the photographers don't do anything about them, which is mystifying to me. If you guys have potential leads that are developed by those people, by those marketing companies that you've hired or that you've developed yourself, follow up with them. Phone call, make a phone call, pick up the phone, dial, call them, speak to them, build a relationship. But just the marketing stuff just brings them possibility in the door. After that, you guys have to follow through by follow up, making the phone calls, developing the relationships, and then if you're lucky, they might book you on a campaign or a project. So that's key and critical. All right, now, okay, another one of the most key critical mistakes that all photographers make is that they don't take all of their money in payment up front. Now, this one is mystifying to me, where I've spoken to some photographers recently, and you know, they're on these huge jobs with clients, and they foot the bill for the job, and then they wait for the client to pay them afterwards. And I'm like, are you insane? Like, I won't even start producing a shoot. I won't even start planning a photo shoot, a location. I don't even plan the wardrobe styling, the hair, the makeup, the locations, and nothing until I get all of the money up front. So it depends on the project, but if it's a consumer project, you're dealing directly with a person and you're going to photograph them for their branding, or you're going to photograph them for their portraits or headshots or wedding or whatever. Requirement, guys, this will save you so much time, energy, and hassle in the long run. Always, always, always 100% without fail, take 100% of the money up front. Period. If you're a consumer photographer, 100% of the money up front. I don't care. There's no one can talk me out of that. Nobody can tell me that there's a reason not to do that, because that is absolutely idiotic to take money after a photo shoot, because good luck trying to collect it. You might have a few customers, I might be honest, but a lot of people will find ways of delaying payment and screwing you out of that. So always, always, always 100% of the time, take payment up front. Not only do that, don't even start planning the shoot or wasting your time with it until the money's in your bank account. And it's the same thing on commercial advertising. So it's commercial advertising. I take 100% of production expenses up front. So for instance, that campaign that I was showing you guys earlier on this project, for this client, what we did was, if it's production expenses, and production expenses are pretty significant amount. So that includes all the crew, all the costs of the talent, all the costs of the production, basically everything except for usage on this. It's pretty significant. So in a project like this, it's a pretty significant amount of production costs. So say it's $145,000 in production costs. That $145,000 is already taken immediately upon booking. I send them an invoice and get that money long before I ever start preparing this photo shoot, this project for the client. So we take the money up front, $145,000 for the production costs, and then the remaining balance is going to be all done. We're going to do 50% of usage and creative upfront as well, and then 50% of the usage and creative at the very end of the shoot. Now, oftentimes, I even gotten to the point where instead of doing a net 30, like a lot of agencies typically would do, where they pay you within 30 days of the shoot, I actually do it within deliverables. So I basically, upon delivery of the content, I get paid the final remaining balance, so that everything 100% is paid. And that's how I would do it, because I don't want to spend, $145,000 producing a shoot. That's insane. It's just, you got to bankroll the client. No way, no how. So make sure you get that money up front, and you're invoicing them for that and get paid. Always, always, always. And whenever a photographer gives me a sob story about, oh, their client didn't pay him and stuff like that, well, that's your own fault. You've got to make sure you get 100% of the money up front, always, 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 and make sure you have a very strong contract in place with them that specifies what the project entails, what the usage and the media is, everything, all the details of it. Again, if you guys need help with that or need examples of that, I've got those. I can send them to you from many, many of my shoots. So I'm happy to do that. These are all some of the most critical components, the critical aspects and mistakes that photographers make. And another one to kind of go in line with production expenses before I bring on my panelists is photographers are not billing for their equipment, their cameras, their lighting gear. And you know what? I don't know about you, but I spend a lot of money on my camera gear. I shoot with a Canon R5. It's like a $4,000 camera with, and then I've got another $10,000, $12,000 in lenses, right? So you're looking at $14,000 to $16,000 just in costs with your cameras, plus memory cards. I shoot those big 512 gigabyte CF Express cards. I've got my computer, my MacBook Pro. It's like, $3,000 computer. I've got all my lighting equipment from Pro Photo, about $100,000 worth of equipment. I don't know about you, but I don't want to take that money out of pocket. So always, always, always have your clients pay you to rent the equipment from yourself. Huge way to make money off of your own gear. And this is something that I've been doing my whole career. I bought whenever I don't buy any gear ever unless I have a client who's paying me for the gear. So for instance, in this budget, I have a rental of $14,800 in production costs for equipment. Well, I own most of this gear. So, and if there's anything I don't own, then I rent it, but everything else, I rent it from myself. So I'm renting equipment from myself, from my other production company, and I'm making a huge profit on this. So in this situation, out of 14,800, I probably, a couple grand in rentals, but the rest of it, about 12 to 13,000, it's just in profit because I'm renting my equipment from myself. And if you guys aren't doing that, you're missing out on a huge amount of money. Now, granted, consumer photographers can't really get away with that with consumer clients. But if you're shooting anything commercial, always, 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 100% of the time, bill your clients for all your production expenses. And it's crazy to me when I see photographers include it in the fee or something without charging them. And it's also important because it makes the client feel like everything's itemized, and it's like, oh, that makes sense. He needs the camera, he needs the lighting equipment, all this huge budget is not just going into his pocket. There's real costs involved with this. So it's actually better for you in the long run because it makes you seem more humble and less greedy as a photographer because you're not giving this massive photographer fee. It's more of broken down into what the actual true costs are, if that makes any sense. All right. Now, another thing I wanted to showcase with you guys is we have a lot of these epic webinars that we've been directing over the years. And I definitely encourage you guys, if you guys are on this right now, you probably want to see some of our other amazing webinars that we do. And I'm also, I think we have about around 60 of these webinars that we did live, and then they are now all in rebroadcast. And I strongly encourage each and every one of you to join our YouTube page, and I put the channel on there on the chat. Please click on that and subscribe. You can watch over 60 of these live webinars on all different topics of photography, and it's a great way to just get free content and to learn more. We do these about every couple of weeks, and for me, I just love inspiring photographers and helping photographers because I am driven to help you guys with your photographic careers. It's so important to me. All right. Now, without further ado, I'd love to bring on my amazing panelists. So the great Lance Andrews, I'm going to ask you to jump on. I would really love to get your perspective on all of this. You're an amazing photographer and a successful photographer. And I know, Lance, because I've personally worked with you for many years, I know that you've made some of these mistakes. And I'd love for you to talk about that. And without, and to give you guys an idea of who he is, most of this editorial here was shot by him. This is, we got the cover and like a 40-page editorial, number 8 magazine. The majority of it was actually shot by the great Lance Andrews, which I'm really proud of. And you got the cover and you got most of the editorials. So incredible work. And that was another thing, Lance. A lot of photographers, I offer them to get published because every single workshop we direct, I get published. And, 8 out of 10 of the photographers don't even send me their pictures. Well, and it's like, I'm not going to chase you guys down to get you published. Like, I'm doing you guys a huge favor. Lance gets those pictures retouched and ready to go and over to me because he wants his pictures published. And there he goes. He's published because Lance has great follow-up. He's practicing really, really good, smart photography business. All right. So Lance, introduce yourself. And I'm also going to showcase some of your websites and stuff, but I would love for you to tell us about who you are, where you're from, and kind of your journey in photography and kind of where you were when I first met you and where you are now, and maybe some of the mistakes you made and what some of the solutions were to kind of take you to the next level. So Lance, tell me about that.
Yeah, no problem. So my name is Lance Andrews.
Oh, hold on. I think for some reason it's muted on my end.
Oh, sorry. Am I good now?
You are. You should be good.
Good. Perfect. My name is Lance Andrews. I'm an editorial lifestyle photographer out of Greenville, South Carolina. I do travel all over the United States and internationally as well. I work in LA, Miami, New York, and I gotta say a lot of my success and my website, a lot of the new images on my website are attributed to taking these workshops. And when I started photography, I was kind of doing the first role, doing jack of all trades. I was doing fashion, I was doing lifestyle, I was doing weddings, portraits, your grandma's dog. I was doing everything because I was thinking if I did all the types of work out there, I can make all the most money. And honestly, that's the biggest lie I've learned. Because if you specialize in a specific niche, you get to hone into that niche, specialize yourself, and make more money that way. So I mostly do fashion, editorial, and lifestyle. I even have a wedding website, but my wedding website is under a completely different website, completely different brand name, separate from what I have now. The only thing linking it is my LLC for tax purposes. So that's the only reason why I have a wedding site and a fashion site separately. But recently, I've been making additional changes. This is my website right here, as you can see. And I don't know if it's refreshed or not, but I have a reel of my previous work and everything. And honestly, this website looked nothing like this before I met Kevin and this team. My website looked like Jack. It was horrible. But I was able to, through this workshop and through their guidance and mentorship, I was able to hone in my website to attract bigger clients. So I have, 4 tabs on top, home, portfolio, bio, contact, got to have your contact information on there. I mean, how else did I reach you? And also I rent out my studio just for additional passive income. But yeah, on my portfolio, if Kevin can click that. Like I said, I just mostly specialize 2 things: editorial, and lifestyle. And these images are from the workshop. That was from the Atlanta workshop. This horse one was from the most of these top ones, except for that middle one, is from the Las Vegas workshop, when we had these like world-class models. They were super amazing and super professional too. I didn't have to worry about posing them. I didn't have to worry about worrying if they could understand the vision. They were on point. And honestly, that horse image on top left corner, we got that in literally like 5 minutes. It was amazing. And I gotta say that it makes marketing so much easier when you are very selective of the work that you put on your website. So I know someone said earlier, how do you market to other, companies and stuff like that? First thing is, being very strict on your portfolio. Even today, I'm still going through it and making sure, hey, how these websites are and everything. How's my work? And deleting old images. You can't get attached to old images. I know we're photographers, we're artists, we like to, but we cannot get attached to old work, because that you're only as good as your worst image. That's what I forgot who said that, but maybe Kevin said that.
That was me. It's true. It's you're only as strong as your weakest image. And Lance, you're only as strong as the weakest model in your image.
Exactly. So you can't, because people will remember the worst image, but they will remember your best one. So and what I've been doing is to market myself, what I've been doing is I downloaded I made an account on Agency Access. And what it does, it gives you a list of all the contact information, all the art directors, creative directors in the industry. And what I've been doing is I've been sending some emails this week. I haven't been doing it lately, so I've been slacking. So I'm still learning. I'm not perfect by any means, but I want to operate my photography on a higher level than just shooting local work, because I know my work's good, and I want to do bigger and better concepts. And let's be honest, make some more money. Who doesn't? And to do that, I need to make myself known to these bigger companies. So I downloaded Agency Access. They have a 1-month trial for free if you want to check it out. And then after that, you pay monthly or pay for a whole year. Not sponsored, just giving you a suggestion.
And by the way, on that, Lance, is that you can use it entirely for a month, or is it like you only have access to a little bit for a month?
You only have access for a little bit, but you still got, I got the phone number, name of the creative director, and mailing address for H&M, Prada, Burberry, Abercrombie and Fitch, the big brands. So it's there. But I'm investing in it monthly because I know that I want to work at a higher level, and to work at a higher level, I need higher results. So I'm going to work for that. And I sent an email yesterday. I can't show it on here, but I sent an email to a creative director. It was like maybe 4 sentences, saying, "Hey, greetings, Aaron. I know you're busy. I won't waste your time, but I'd like to get information about me on your roster." And I put in some other text, but I'll put an image. I'll put the horse picture on there, because it kind of relates to their brand. And that's kind of another thing as well. Maybe a sub point is, if you're going to reach out to a brand, make sure you study up on that brand to make sure how to market it. You can't market Prada the same way you market towards H&M, because they're 2 separate, different, quality brands, so to speak. Burberry maybe editorial, H&M maybe more lifestyle. So I have a lifestyle portfolio side. So, and also, if you really want to make a splash, what I've been doing as well is I've been actually printing out portfolio books, mailing it directly to the creative director. And sure, this might be an extra expense on me. 1, I could write it off, but 2, having a handwritten note and a physical portfolio book mailed directly to them makes me stand out above everybody else. And they remember me, I may not hear from them, directly, but they're going to have that portfolio book, and it makes reaching out much easier. I can do a follow-up call, say, "Hey, Aaron, hope you received my portfolio book. I'd love to get in touch with you about how I can add value to your company. Let's keep in touch." Another image on the bottom, and send an email. And there's a quote I heard recently, actually. It was that 2% of sales are made on the first call, 80% of sales are made on the 10th and beyond call, and 48% of sales associates don't follow up after the first contact. So that leaves a lot of money on the table, and that leaves a lot of opportunity on the table. So definitely follow up, and definitely take advantage of the opportunities, and take advantage of mentorship. One thing I've learned recently is that if you want to get to somewhere, you got to take the advice of someone who's already been there. So when I want to create high photographic work, when I want to reach out to high brands, obviously Kevin and his team, they've done that. So I want to lean on their wisdom, lean on their experience, and take what they say to heart, and to benefit my portfolio and also my business as well.
Excellent. Now, I want to follow up with you on this, Lance. You said that you're printing portfolios. Are these like bound books, like you're self-publishing a book kind of thing? Are those type of portfolios? Do you like mixed books or something?
So this is just a prototype. So don't judge me or anything. I'm actually going to talk to you later and make sure, is the formatting good?
Absolutely. I'd love to.
But basically, it's a book like this. It's a landscape. And what I do is I have images from our photographic workshops, in the book.
Wow. I want one of these.
Yeah.
That looks amazing.
Yeah, it's a website called Blurb. And
oh, yeah.
So I don't know if you use Blurb, but yeah, so basically I sent this. So this one, once I touch it up, maybe order another one, I'm gonna mail it to H&M. I have a mailer here. And also I have stationaries, just to add that extra value to stand yourself out, and I did the research, make sure my images were catered towards that brand, because obviously they like more bright and airy stuff and more lifestyle. And I'm basically trying to get my foot in the door that way. And this will be a great way to add value, and also to get me on the radar.
And about how much does each one of those books cost you?
This one was, I'll say 60 or
Okay.
maybe $60, $80, but there's only like 20 pages in there. Now you could do the cheap route and do CVS, but I don't recommend that because you don't want your high quality images on cheap paper.
Right.
So no, I'm paying $60, $80 for this. And I'm just doing that, over time and seeing what results I yield and doing it that way.
Excellent. Excellent. I love it, Lance. I love it. And what's interesting about H&M is they kind of go both ways, because if you look at their branding campaigns, they actually do both lifestyle and fashion. So, you kind of have to make a decision there of which one you want to showcase. So it sounds like you want to, because like, even if I just Google like H&M campaigns, it actually kind of comes up with different ones. Like you have some that are more lifestyle-y and a little bit more free people like, and then you have some that are more like high fashion, like these. So there's kind of a mix.
I do also, I will say, I like the fact that on your workshops that you have a variety of like editorial, lifestyle, swimsuit, stuff like that. So I actually did include a,
Oh, I love that image too. That was from that was epic lifestyle workshop.
These are really good. And I like your advice about not having the model's face directly in the center, because otherwise that would be in her face and it wouldn't look good. Yeah. So yeah.
Oh, a thought on that too. Have you thought about making that a vertical book and having it vertical with some double page spreads on that?
Well, I might ask your opinion on that, because this is still new territory for me, mailing out books. So I may lean on your more wisdom on that, see which format's better.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm loving it. I'm loving your website. You've got some gorgeous work here. These are images from the workshops. I'm really proud of these. These are unbelievable. We shot like a vineyard with like all these lifestyle scenarios. We shot in Miami Beach. And this epic one right here with the guy with the surfboard and these girls down here. And then you go over to this like high fashion editorial stuff. And unbelievable. Now, these images to me, Lance, are really iconic. I mean, they're just absolutely epic. And as you know, because you've produced shoots yourself, it's very expensive to do this. It's very expensive and complex. You fly in models from New York and LA out to the desert. We have RVs and motorhomes on production. We've got bringing in all the lighting equipment and vehicles out onto the desert, shooting with horses and these various animals out on location. It's insane. The scale of the production is high. So if you were to do this on your own, to scale something like that, it's going to be $50,000 to $100,000 a day to do it right. And that's why the workshops are such a huge advantage, because you end up saving a lot in the long run. And I recommend, guys, and please answer in the poll section, because I was asking, what is your budget for developing your portfolio? And this could be, whether you do it on your own, whether you produce shoots, and I know Lance does, because he does shoots all the time, whether he does it at the workshops or he does it on his own. He does both. So producing shoots on your own, or coming to these epic workshops where we literally do it all for you. We provide the motorhome RVs, all the model casting with my Rolodex of top models that have been in Vogue and Harper's Bazaar, top stylists and massive scale production, and you can kind of spread the cost over the whole group, so it ends up being a much less expensive experience over the course of 5 days, 5 massive scale shoot production days. So please ask in the polls, please go ahead and answer that one, and I'm going to ask you guys another poll here in a few. But Lance, out of all these shoots, because you've done quite a few with me over the years, from Atlanta to Las Vegas, out in the desert, to Miami. Have you also done a masterclass yet with me?
I have not.
You haven't done
my next one with you is actually the Paris French one. Actually.
French Castle, the French Castle. That's epic.
Next one.
Which ones of these really do you think you benefited the most from?
Probably the Vegas one, because I was there for all 5 days.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I was like, I'm a skeptic at heart sometimes. So I was like, let me do the 3-day one. And then I kind of regret it, because I wish I did the 5-day one in Miami. Because I know you guys went to, I know we shot in that mansion, and then you guys went to some island or something after that. And then I was kind of like, man, missed out on that one. So But I would say the Vegas one definitely benefit the most. I got a ton of great images from that I have all over on my Instagram, on my website. And that's another thing I want to point out as well. So lately, I've been noticing that I've been getting a lot more inquiries ever since I cleaned up my social media as well. So I will also say that if you're looking to market yourself as well, not just on your website, but clean up your social media as well. I have tons of images
Yeah.
from the past that I left on there all the way down. I was like, man, that does not represent my current
Yeah.
body of work. So like right now I have the top Vegas workshop images pinned to the top right here. So that's like the first thing they see. I'm still have to go through my Instagram and clean up as well, but I got rid of all the boudoir and lingerie photos because that doesn't represent what I want. And honestly, a lot of the big brands don't care for that type of work.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, Lance, I want you to talk about this because you're a brilliant photographer, but you also have this gorgeous like lingerie and sexy photography that you do. But one of the conversations I've had with you is I kind of sat you down. I'm like, well, Lance, where do you want to go? What do you want to achieve? And you're like, oh, I want to be, your brand is In Vogue Photographies. You probably want to be shooting for Vogue. You want to be shooting high-end fashion. You want to be shooting major campaigns. And do those shoots with lingerie and sexy girls, does it really get you there or does it hold you back?
It was definitely holding me back for a couple of reasons. One, big brands don't care for that type of content. They don't want to be associated with that type of content. And because especially nowadays where everything is very polarizing, I would say, having that type of sexy content, some people might not care, but some people may do. And they'll look at your Instagram and be like, nah, not that guy. Even though I can create great work, they will look at that image and just write me off, you know? And I don't want to have that type of reputation to speak for my entire body of work. Granted, I was doing boudoir and lingerie because I was getting a lot of client inquiries from that, but I want to operate and shoot at a higher level, at a higher caliber. And I knew doing that type of, sexy content, wasn't going to get me there. So, so I went through my Instagram, I cleaned up a lot, some more stuff I'm cleaning up as well. And, I'm basically just trying to elevate myself. I'm still got a lot of learning to do and a lot of, mileage to go, but
I have a suggestion for you right now, Lance. You have all these gorgeous images that are just iconic and beautiful, but we also have the published versions of these. And I would recommend you post the published ones that actually show all the topography and stuff on it so that people can tell that it was published.
Right. I
Really
did post it, but it might have been like down in the feed right now. So I probably should pin it on top. And so that
because he has this image, for instance, and when you see the topography with it and stuff, I think it's even stronger because then it's like, oh wow, that's the social proof that he's been published.
Okay, definitely.
Yeah,
it's still learning. Still learning.
Always. I mean, your work is so strong, and we just need to brand it in the best possible way so that everybody knows how gorgeous it is. Here, I'll actually show the audience here what I'm talking about.
And that's another thing I want to touch upon as well, is that some photographers get very prideful when someone criticizes their work. And I gotta say that, you know what, just go ahead and get rid of that pridefulness, because if you want to advance, you gotta take criticism. Criticism is actually a good thing. Criticism for the entrepreneur and for anyone who wants to grow is you can either let it hurt you or use it as a tool for growth. So even though like there's some images I really love from the past, they don't serve me anymore. So now I look to the advice of people who've been to where I've been, and now I adjust my work accordingly.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Lance, because we just directed this epic workshop in New York. And some of the photographers that are on right now attended it. And I have a story to share with you and the audience about a critical mistake that a photographer made. And it was a photographer, it was me. This is gorgeous. I just love these scenes. This is all from that editorial in Vegas, by the way. And we have this workshop coming up once again this March. And Lance landed the cover of this. But Lance, I wanted to bring this up. We had this amazing panelist at our workshop in New York, and his name is Joe Lombardo, and he's with Curated Artists, and he's a major artist, major agent, and he was with Artists and Creatives in New York for years, and then started his own agency. But anyway, what I wanted to exhibit was that when I first started my career, I did my bachelor's, my MFA to be a professor of photography. I got out of school, I started shooting, and I built this great portfolio. And you know what? As I think I was like a 24-year-old punk kid, I wanted to get an agent. I'm like, hey, if I want to be a high profile photographer, I need to have an agent. Right. So I was like contacting all these agents. Now, this is Joe Lombardo's agency now. Anyway, I was contacting all these agents, and I'm this 24-year-old kid just picking up the phone, calling, mailing them promo pieces, emailing them, talking to them, asking about, I'm looking for representation. And most of them are all, oh, I don't have any, oh, I'm not interested. No, like I have enough, and I'm not adding to my roster, whatever. That's what they all say. But there's about 200 agents in the country, and I'm contacting all of them, and I'm building relationships with them, and most of them don't want to talk to me, but I don't care. I have thick skin, right? This agent I talked to, Joe Lombardo, and Joe Lombardo, he picked up he was like, oh my God, I love your work. I got your promo piece. It's awesome. Why don't you mail me your portfolio? And I was like, what? And I didn't have a cool portfolio like Lance. I didn't have that epic like printed book like Lance, right? So these days you want either a printed book or you need like a screw post bound portfolio, right? So this top tier agent, and I'm actually going to show you what my portfolio looks like. But basically, I was like trying to scurry around and try to make a portfolio, and I was like, shoot, like what do I do? He loves my work, so I go over to this art store, and I go to like a Blick Art, and I go and I buy a portfolio, a leather 11 by 17 approximately black leather portfolio, and it had these like spiral bound binding in it, and I go and I print all the pictures that he liked on my website, and then I basically attach them into this like spiral bound portfolio, and then I mail it to him. Didn't hear back, and then eventually I called up and I followed up. I'm like, hey Joe, it's this Kevin Michael Schmitz. I sent you my book. You wanted to see my portfolio. You loved my website. I sent you my book. What happened? And he just went off on me. He started saying that you sent me absolute garbage. What are you doing? Are you kidding me? Why are you wasting my time?
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, well, and instead of getting upset, instead of getting defensive, I was like, really? Well, the same pictures that you saw on my website that you love so much, what didn't you like about my portfolio? He's like, oh, well, the presentation's shit. I could never show this to my advertising clients. This guy, and by the way, Joe Lombardo, I just saw him a few weeks ago. His photographers are shooting the Gucci campaign. And his stylist that worked with me also styling the Gucci campaign that worked with us in New York at our workshop. So anyway, so he's like, yeah, no, this is absolute crap. I don't want to see anything like this. And he's like, no, this is just garbage. And first of all, it can't be screw post. It has to be screw post bound or printed bound like the one you have. It can't be this spiral bound crap. And it was a cheaper one, bought at Blick Art, and I spent $300 on it, but it was garbage in the eyes of an agent. It has to be very specific. So then I was like, well, can you at least send it back to me? Like a week goes by. In the mail, I get this portfolio that was broken in half and like ripped apart and put in a box. And then I got it in the mail.
Wow.
But I tell you what, it was a mistake that I made. And, lo and behold, I didn't get represented by him. But it pushed me to go out and make a nice, beautiful portfolio. And actually, this is the portfolio here. I'll show you. This is the portfolio that I made like shortly after all this happened. And here I'm going to. And I made this portfolio. So it was 11 by 14, and it's got beautiful images in it. It's got, it's bound with like screw post binding in the middle with 3 screw posts. So if you see, this is the type that they all look for. I mean, and I've had this now for years, and and this was from many years ago when I was showcasing this portfolio. But this is what it looked like. The new portfolio that I made, it kicked me into gear. And when I made this, I got repped by an agent. I got repped by AA reps in New York, and I ended up being repped by them for many years and shooting big campaigns for them and stuff like that. So it all started though with getting kicked in the butt because I wasn't doing it right. I was making mistakes.
And where did you get that? Where'd you get that one from? Like, what? Did you order that, or
I had this handmade by a bookbinder, which, by the way, is very expensive. It often it's about $2,000 to $3,000 to have them handmade by a bookbinder. But I don't know if I'd even recommend that these days, because portfolios a lot of times they don't even, can't even get in to show a book right now. But I do recommend, there's a great brand called Paper Hoss where I buy a lot of my metal portfolios now, and I love those things. In fact, so anyway, so that's the story. The funniest thing, guys, is that he jumped on he was on as, not only did he represent our stylist on our shoot, but he also he was our panelist. He spoke for like 3 hours during our workshop, and it was epic because we had this opportunity to meet Joe and all the photographers. I actually told that story. It was great. But he's now, top tier agent, and, we got to talk about, and he got to meet the photographers that were there, and about, if they want to be represented by him, he's the kind of guy they need to build relationships with. So our photographers that attended the workshop are now, some of them are talking to him about maybe being represented by him someday, which is pretty awesome. So, and by the way, just to give you guys an idea, this is what we shot in New York at our New York fashion photography workshop. We shot with these supermodels from Vogue. We shot at a $40 million mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut. And then we also shot at the Vanderbilt estate. And but it was absolutely epic. But just to give you a little of an idea. And Joe Lombardo was our key panelist, which is really cool. So Lance, you've developed significantly since I've met you. You've branded yourself differently. You've cut out the kind of sexy images. You've gone towards editorial and fashion. What's next for you? What do you want to achieve? Is it shooting the branding campaign for H&M? What does that look like for you?
So my goal for now is I want to shoot branding campaigns for more of the luxury fashion brands. So I do want to shoot H&M. I do want to shoot Burberry, Prada, Dolce & Gabbana, those type of brands, because I personally love fashion. I have a passion for fashion. That was a lame joke, but I definitely want to create and shoot more high-end productions. I can only do so much on my own. As you said earlier, it's expensive. It's very expensive to do these high-end budget type of photography shoots on your own. And I would like to do them for campaigns who actually have the financial backing to create my visions and, really hone in my skills. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now. So that's why I got the agency access. I have the contact information. So for the next, however long it takes, I'm gonna send at least 5 emails a day. I'm gonna try to mail out a portfolio book, once a week, or maybe once every 2 weeks, depending on my schedule and how budgeting goes, and staying consistent. And that's kind of the key thing you have to do, is you have to stay consistent and follow up with these clients. Otherwise, you won't get them. It's kind of what you said earlier. A lot of people don't follow up and don't put in the work for this. So you have to put in the work. And that's my goal for the next 90 days, and then see what I can do from that. And also go on the workshop. France is coming. It's soon.
I love it. I love it. It really has made a difference, and I'm really, really happy to have you here and to have you a part of this, Lance, because you're wonderful. You're a wonderful asset to our team, and it's so awesome to have you.
Hey, thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for putting on these workshops. I know it's not easy from a producer standpoint, but it has really definitely benefited my photography business. So I appreciate you, Priscilla, and all your team, what you guys have been doing.
Oh, thank you, Lance. So thanks for joining us. I can't wait to see you on the next one. And speaking of our production and the great Priscilla, we have the great Priscilla Evans here as a panelist, and she is also our production coordinator. She helps manage all this magic and helps, create these unbelievable productions with amazing animals that we bring in. From this year, we brought in Priscilla. We had a kangaroos. We had baby lemurs at the Virginia workshop. We've shot with like 13 different horses there. We've shot at the Colorado one. We had Bactrian camels to reindeer, and we have the most unbelievable experiences. So anyway, Priscilla, why don't you tell me a little bit about, I know you get to coach photographers all the time. Can you tell us a little bit about what some of the biggest mistakes that they make and what you have coached them on to improve on and to solve those?
Absolutely. So, hey guys, it's wonderful to be on. These are really necessary discussions, and it can feel a little bit like, you're getting broken down sometimes when you have these discussions. Maybe it's with a mentor, or maybe it's with someone in the industry, like Kevin's experience early on. But they're so necessary for growth, because if you've got a goal, and we all do, I hope we all do, if it's anything other than what you're doing right now, then you've got to take action to make that happen. And that can take many forms, and those actions that you need to take are going to be different at different points in your career, depending on where you're at with your photography. But there are so many easy things. There have been some really easy tips and tricks on today's webinar, such as making sure you've got your contact information readily available. That doesn't cost anything if you've already got a website, going, all the way through to something a little more in-depth and heavy, like investing in yourself in a big way. And something I want to, I think, delve right into is photographers' perceptions of money. And it's a tricky one. And everyone has a different perception of money. Everyone has their own weird kind of interrelationship with money. But the photographers that tend to be the most successful earliest on in their photography journey, that can come at any point in someone's life, they tend to be the ones that understand the true costs of waiting, the true costs of, that being like the opportunity cost of waiting, but also the process that, the portfolio and your brand has to take to get you to that endpoint. So, I want to come back to kind of the chicken and egg of these big goals and what happens first. And this is often a discussion that I have pretty regularly, actually, with photographers. So more often than not, there's a big goal. It might be to shoot for Prada, to land a front cover of Vogue or Harper's Bazaar. And we kind of end up having this discussion of, well, okay, why haven't you got there? Or at what point, if you keep going with what you're doing, are you going to get there? And often that comes down to, well, I haven't got there because I've got nothing in the portfolio yet to allow me to get there. Okay, cool. So we've worked out that the bottom line is portfolio. So how do you, propose to fix that right now? Or how do you want to do it yourself, if that's, where the conversation goes? And more often than not, the answer is like, I'm going to wait until I eventually, build the clients. I go from here, maybe to here with the budget, here to here, and we step up bit by bit. But often that can mean taking on a whole lot of clients in years of interim, where the budgets are really, really small. And instead, and I think that the perception is that because there is a budget, be it a few hundred or a few thousand, that we're doing really well. But what photographers fail to consider is all those years where they could have been landing a couple of six-figure ad campaigns instead of working super, super, super hard to land the smaller clients, where that time and where, the energy should have gone. And they don't look at it as a loss, but it is a loss. It's a huge loss of opportunity that could have come way sooner if the money and that perception of money and how to spend it and where to spend it and at what point to invest in equipment, which shouldn't be early on. It should be like the last thing that you're investing in. What point to invest in the brand, which should be the first thing, and that personal brand and investing in it can take lots of forms. But, the most important part of that is that portfolio and that video reel. And if you can do the chicken and egg, scenario in a different way and figure out, which is basically where we come in, in terms of these crazy high value workshops where you walk away with content that makes you look like, and we encourage you to market yourself as someone who is basically, already, like with Lance, you've landed front covers. Fantastic. You're now, an internationally published fashion editorial photographer. Amazing. You've now got the ability to go back to those clients and show that you've already done it. And that's the thing. If you, had taken a different journey and gone about it yourself, trying to slowly build, we wouldn't even be anywhere near that point yet. But Lance, you're going to have an amazing year next year because, oh my gosh, like, look at these images. These are ridiculous. And I'm super, super proud of you. And I do also want to echo Kevin. I love the portfolio. If these, if you adjust these in the social and put the editorial, the published versions in, they look insane. Yeah, I think that this kind of content, if you can start with this and understand that, debt isn't as scary as it may seem earliest on in your career, you're actually, if you can understand the value of doing it now, investing now, making all of these steps with your brand now, and that can mean saying no, saying no to some of those lower budget clients that are not worth your time. Often saying no to them and not taking the few hundred or the couple of grand today, it can mean making a lot more, come a few months or a few years down the track. So understanding the true costs, understanding and sort of reevaluating, that interrelationship with money and investing in yourself, investing in the portfolio to achieve the, what the minimum is. And for us, what we constantly hear, we heard it from our panelists that we had speaking at our masterclass last week, but it's, 40 images, cohesive body of work. That means individual 40 for individual brand, another 40 for a separate brand for separate clientele. So each portfolio, each brand, 40 cohesive images. There needs to be at least 20 of those that are iconic. Lance, and that's just building to an insane number now, which is awesome. Having all of those boxes ticked, a little bit of, it might be the boxes they want ticked these days. So diversity, that might be diversity for a commercial brand in the age of the models, in the ethnicity of the models, all sorts of things like that. Location variety, which is where we come in, making sure that out of, a 5-day workshop, like in New York, I think we had 5 days between, we had rooftop studio, Vanderbilt mansion, and this incredible estate that honestly looks, every single image on it looked like it was from somewhere else in Italy or France. So it really did have a fantastic location variety to it. And understanding the cost of doing something like this yourself, because a lot of our photographers, that we have at these workshops understand that by pooling together, we're able to put on a much bigger production and work as a team to get, like in New York, 39 different scenes out of those 5 days, which is basically your entire portfolio. That's pretty awesome. And, to be able to do that as a group, you'll get a lot more out of it, a lot more, quickly. So it's much more efficient and it's a faster way to reach those goals. And, if others are doing it, then really you're just being left behind if you're not. So it is a competitive industry. It's just the way that it is. And to understand that true value in investing in yourself. And I think as we get to the end of the year, really start to think about that with 2023 and some new goals, and maybe, setting aside, maybe for the first time for some of you, a really decent budget, investing in yourself and understanding the power that that's going to have long term.
You're absolutely right, Priscilla. And some of these mistakes that these photographers are making, like, we're able to overcome them by creating massive scale production value with unbelievable branding. And I loved how you touched on money and their interrelationship with money, but it's all about the investment. Do you have any last strategies or tips that you'd like to share with photographers? Because I know you get to personally consult with photographers, because Priscilla's one of our lead photographic consultants. Are there any strategies that you have given to photographers that, kind of some secret sauce that you'd love to share? Now would be a great time.
Absolutely. I think, those ability to be able to market directly. And like Lance was saying, craft those emails, craft those images around the brand, and also just having a mentor to look over that. Lance, obviously we're here for you all the time, more than happy to look over those conversations and those communications, especially as you start to, have them more often and more regularly with those top tier agencies that are, responsible for some of those fantastic brands that you want to be working with. But definitely, regularly checking in regularly adjusting the marketing plan and being consistent and doing more with the marketing. You know, some things that come to mind, I would say, you know, with the photographers that are on right now, I certainly remember those print promo pieces that I've seen that photographers have either sent me or brought to a workshop, and we've checked over them. And, you know, I've said, yes, this is ready to send. I love it. And one that comes to mind, Jane Ritchie, if you're still on, that yours are absolutely beautiful. Love your lifestyle, you know, print promo pieces, and they're memorable. I think she showed me hers in February, and I still know exactly which images, you know, she's got from different workshops on there. So, you know, they're fantastic to do. And I think hitting the marketing goals in a lot of different ways, social, but also something in person, something tangible, you know, it's just so much more memorable if you're physically holding it and it's shoved in your face. Yeah, I'd say one thing I do say, which I actually want to talk to you about this as well, Lance. It's just the only thing I would probably look at changing sooner than later with your website. I love full bleed images. And I think that it's more, I mean, it's not about what I love, it's about what's in right now. But I do hear that from a lot of the panelists that we have, is that full bleed, you know, show that whole image here rather than, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the same screen, and make sure that those websites are, you know, phone compatible as well. So that when you're opening it, you know, whoever it is, a prospective client is opening that website, you know, you can see it beautifully with those images loading really nicely on a smaller screen too. So check those things. Always good to just, you know, have a look at your website from different devices, just double check that everything's loading well. And for this, you know, I think that, you know, like that gorgeous yellow dress, the horse, to me, stunning images. They'd be even more stunning if they were full bleed, and it was like a nice easy gallery, and that the best images are loading first. I'm not sure what comes up on, you might have your video reel too. That, I mean, that probably should be first, but you know, video reel and portfolio, the best of the best loading first on your website. You don't want to have too much clicking into folders or anything like that. Make it easy for all of those decision makers that are looking at it. They're all time poor, and you know, they want to be able to look, love, and call you pretty much on the same page. So you know, make it easy for them, and yeah, and let the images speak for themselves.
Well, thank you so much, Priscilla. And yeah, and to her point, that I totally agree. I mean, Lance, your images are epic here, but there's so little on the screen, I can't really see them, and I want them to fill up the screen because they're just so darn good. I mean, they're so epic. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Priscilla, and thanks so much, Lance, for joining us on here as panelists. We love to hear perspectives. And for those of you guys who have not set up a photographic console, then please, you know, go ahead and take advantage of that. You can click this in the chat and set up a photographic momentum session on, essentially, you know, we went over the 9 biggest mistakes that photographers make, but also, you know, during your momentum session, you can learn about the top 10 aspects that successful photographers incorporate and strategies incorporate to become super successful. And that's what our photographic consultants can help you with, each and every aspect, to make sure that you can achieve your goals. That's really important. And I want to thank you guys for joining us, because this is something I know I was very critiquing a lot of what you guys do, but these are things that all photographers make. I've made every mistake under the sun over my whole career, but I've learned from them, I've grown from them, and I'm trying to constantly develop and become the best version of myself, the best photographer. And I'm here to help you guys do that as well. So if you guys want to get involved in any of our epic experiences, let us know. But either way, I want you guys to achieve greatness in your photography and become unbelievable, world-class, successful photographers at the highest level. And I want you guys to be able to circumvent all these problems that our photographers are dealing with all the time, the biggest mistakes, and be able to let us make the mistakes and you guys don't have to, so you guys can get past that. So if you incorporate everything we talked about today, especially when it comes to the phone calls, the follow-up, and the marketing and developing your photographic brand and portfolio, you will be so much better off in the long term, just like Lance is. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you guys in person at one of these epic experiences.